Hello everyone, welcome back to another video, and this is going to be the last time I say welcome to an episode of Building Hogwarts in LEGO, because this is the finale. But more important than that, it's also a really big mess, and that's not going to get cleaned up anytime soon. I pretty much assure you of that. Got to prioritize building, and then we got to prioritize transporting this thing, and then after that I'll think about organizing. But I'm sure you're all excited to know what we're actually going to get done in this week's video. Well, to start off with, we've got quite a lot of small details that need fixed here and there all throughout the mock. They're not anything that's noticeably going to change anything, but for example, this railing needs tiling. There needs to be some stuff on those snot bricks. If we zoom in over there onto that building, you can see right over the entranceway that there's exposed studs, or you could see before it decided on focus. It's all these little nit bits. Like there's a cone missing that just need to get a proper inspection and need to be completed so that I can officially say Hogwarts is done. Throughout the entirety of the mock, there's also small things, like it's just more of a personal thing if I have the pieces for it. For example, I don't mind those minifigures, is I would like to tile off all of the exposed stud surfaces on the main castle, obviously not on the ground. Also things like, you can see that there's a gap in the wall just because the table has warped over time, so nothing is sitting quite right. Now that might not be something I can fix until I actually get to the convention. I can just slap it down, but it's all those little things that we're going to be focusing on, and also a few more important things. Now, over the course of this building series, I have on numerous occasions asked you guys for opinions and suggestions on how I can fill some interiors, how I can create some scenes in other places, and so just before the making of this video, I diligently went through and wrote down every single suggestion that I've had during this Building Hogwarts series, and I've written them all down here, split them up into things that can actually become rooms, so suggestions of actual filling interiors versus suggestions on how to use some spaces that might already exist, or things that don't actually need a dedicated room. Now, as you can see, those are pretty big lists, and especially when it comes to the interiors, I don't actually have that many left. Now, most of those suggestions are for the same thing, so I've had to sort of pick and choose what I think will work based on what interiors I already have in the mock, and what will sort of accent those quite nicely, and just also things that I think were just a little bit out of the box and a little bit, oh, that's cool, if I open this is what I would really like to see. Now, that's not to suggest that anyone's suggestions were bad, because if possible I would have liked to put all of them in there, but frankly speaking, despite how big Hogwarts is, I was looking at the list of even scenes to create here, and there's about 5 that go in the Forbidden Forest, and well, here's my Forbidden Forest. It's about the size of a hand, so I can squeeze 1, maybe 2 scenes in, which I'm really disappointed about because there were some really good ones. So what I'll have to do is look at what scenes cross over between characters. So for example, if Umbridge has been suggested multiple times, I'll find one where it doesn't conflict with another scene so that I can use my one Umbridge figure effectively, and so on and so forth. And now when it comes to interiors, we have got 4 to fill this episode. One is in the center right there, and it has absolutely no windows, but it's a 16 by 16, or I guess it would be 14 by 14 once you take into account the walls. 14 by 14 with no walls, about 6 bricks tall, and I will show you on later in the video what we're going to do with that space. Another one is currently missing. It's sitting right here. This is a 8 by 16 plate, so this one is a little bit more accessible in terms of what you can see. You're seeing it from the side as opposed to from the top, and of course you can pull this off quite easily, whereas the other one is more deep down in the center. And then the last 2 are going to be in the bell towers. Now, I really wish that I could use the entire thing, but without ripping apart most of this side of the building, it's quite hard to get into it. And also, they're only 8 by 8 wide, the interiors, so you're not actually able to fit too much in that. That being said, I have found a way to put an interior in it and also make it effective for transporting. Now, you can see here at this level, the floor steps in, so I thought that was a perfect opportunity to, and I've already done it with this building, is to make this completely removable. And you can see what the space looks like inside. We have got about 6 or 7 bricks before we hit those indents for the windows, and we've got an 8 by 8 platform right here to work with, and I will be doing a similar thing with the other tower, of course. So now that means is I'll be able to just pull off the top half of this tower, and it's all structurally secure, and so is everything beneath this. And I'll be able to make a little scene in this, which will actually be quite cool to see exposed with no walls. Because of how small the space is, if you were looking at it like that, it wouldn't be as interesting. So these are going to be like 2 small vignettes, whereas these might be actual full-size rooms. So to get us started, this room will be something that quite a few people actually suggested, and that's going to be Snape's potion closet. Now, of course, I do already have a potions classroom in this mock, so what I'm going to do is make sure not to make it look too similar to this. The whole idea of the potions closet is, well, I think we see it once in the 4th movie, and that is, of course, to do shelves and shelves of potions, but more importantly, that very iconic scene of him on a ladder and a door wide open, although obviously I won't be able to have a door, but there's Karkaroff and Snape inside the potions closet, speaking about their dark mark. So let's see if we can try to fit that in there. And one last thing to note, we have just about 24 hours. It is the 8th of May, about 2:30 in the afternoon. We have about 24 hours until I need to start taking this, not only down to the car, but actually start driving to the LEGO convention. So, tall task, 4 interiors, all the details that I'm missing, and setting up all the scenes. We can do it. So first things first, we have the right hand side of the bell towers, and well, if you just grab it as such and lift, we have the potions closet. Now this I think is quite a cool little vignette. I've just used pretty much any assortment of small potion bottles or anything that really looks like it could be in a potions closet and thrown it around the room. We do have sort of in the back corner what is essentially just books stacked up, just to sort of fill in the blanks. So I'll come around the other side so you can see. This is what I mean. And it's really just anything to bring a little bit of color and life to the space. We've got a few cabinet drawers down here, cauldron, plants, and the such. Of course, it is a very small little room, just 8 by 8, but overall, I am very happy with how this little scene has turned out. Now, the next thing I wanted to tackle is something a little bit bigger from my list. Now, as you can see here, this is what I have for interiors. You can see what I've checked off already. And there's one right here, Weasley Swamp, which, when I read that comment, I was like, oh. Because obviously that's one of the things that you read in the book, but it's never really documented because it's such a small part of the Order of the Phoenix that it doesn't really get much attention. But I decided that this room right here that goes underneath the main central tower right here, above the room of requirement, could be the perfect spot for something which we don't really even have much context for. So what I'm thinking of doing, and obviously this is based on the very little information that we have of this scene, is to make a swamp, yes, but more specifically, kind of make it in a river shape and have swamp beds on either side. And then what the main focus will be is a boat sitting right in the middle, and we're going to have Filch carting or punting, as the words were, punting students across the swamp of the 5th floor corridor. Alright, so I had some good fun with this little swamp build over here. As you can see, I took the river build and essentially just put some dark green wedge plates on either side and then absolutely plastered it with these lilies. Had a little bit of fun putting this little construction sign here on the end. And of course we've got the famous boat with Filch using a broom instead of an oar because I thought it was more fitting. And he's carting Ron across this little river or the swamp. And overall, quite a simple little build, but because it's going right here in the castle where there are no windows, it looks pretty good. So with the swamp out of the way, the next thing we need to start focusing on is this. This is obviously quite a large room to deal with in comparison to what we have left over there. This is going to be about double the size, so obviously we made a swamp in this one. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do in that one, but I know that for sure. Let's discuss the options for this. Now you can see here from this list that there actually are a lot of really good suggestions. Some of them, unfortunately, I'm not able to find a place in these current interiors for. Specifically things like McGonagall's and Umbridge's office. I would really like to do those. McGonagall's because you've never seen it, Umbridge's because it's just so iconically pink, but because I'm already going to have the Transfiguration classroom, I'm going to have McGonagall there, so in that sense it is McGonagall's room. For Umbridge, I'm planning on using her for an exterior scene, so I only have one figure, so in that sense I can't really do that twice. Now, when it comes to bathrooms and the room of requirement, I would like to put them, but because I've already got one of them in the castle, I think we're going to leave it at that. Which, for me, leaves one interesting room to do, and that is, of course, the Teacher's Lounge. Now, this one is particularly intriguing because it's another scene that only appears in the books. It gives me a way to bring in the boggart, because in the current Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom, and I can spin around and show you, I have it set up for Gilderoy Lockhart's room, I believe. Yes. Now we do have Professor Lupin in the back taking his Wolfsbane potion, but there is no room currently to be doing a boggart scene in here, and I wouldn't want to rip out what I've already got going here. So, right in that space, by putting a Teacher's Lounge, it allows me to make a very simple room layout, but more importantly have a ornate closet and maybe make some sort of a scene from the books. I'll have to quickly read up on those and see what that might be, but perhaps the boggart coming out of the closet while the teachers are all in there. So the first and arguably the most important bit of this Teacher's Lounge or staff room is the closet. Now this is a pretty simple build, and to be honest, I'm not entirely proud of it, but it does look like the closets in the movie. Now it's based loosely on the Mirror of Erised, that's what you can see here in the middle, and while it doesn't open, I think it has the general form, and given the size of this building or this room that we're dealing with, I think it fits the space quite nicely. Now that allows me to put a few other things in the room, but this will be the main focus, and of course whatever I decide is the boggart coming out of it. Now obviously the room itself is not terribly big, and as described in the books, this room is supposed to be full of mismatched different chairs and just different seating in the room, so everything is quite haphazard. There's a few books lying around, there's a few teachers' work on tables and such. Now that is quite a lot to capture in such a small space, especially like when I just said we're going to put the closet right in the middle. So what I'll try to do is put some form of a little table off to the side, and I'm thinking of just making a cool scene centered around this boggart. And there's also this shelf back here, which is just because this front facade is two layers of brick thick, so I think I might use that to my advantage and use it as some sort of shelving. So here we have the Teacher's Lounge, or the staff room, which turned out to be a lot smaller than even I was expecting. I knew it was small, but this is quite tiny. You've got the closet right in the middle, and I've got Dumbledore and Moody tampering with it off to the left. I've got a small desk, and we've got the trophy cabinet from one of the sets on the right, and all of a sudden 3 items and 2 people. This room is completely full, but you know what, I quite like this. It acts as a little bit of vignette that you just pull off and you can peer into, and you immediately get an idea of what this scene is supposed to be. Up on the shelf there we just have some paintings, a Hedwig, or another random owl, and a toad. So we're going to plop this back in the MOC. So with this little overhang back in its spot, that leaves only one interior left to do for this build, and it's going to be a replica of the same size of this bell tower right over there, and let's take a look at what that might be. So in terms of the suggestions that I have left, I have 3. I have an entrance cabinet to the Undercroft, so that's an Easter egg to Hogwarts Legacy, and I'm going to have to just do a very little bit of investigating to remind myself what that would look like. However, that won't be able to go in a bell tower because, well, it's an Undercroft, so I'm going to try to find another location for it in the castle, but we'll see. A toad pen, now that is quite a cool idea for the singing toads, of course, that you see in The Prisoner of Azkaban, but it doesn't need an entire room, so that might just go elsewhere in the MOC. We'll have a little vignette or something of that. Right at the bottom here, I have the Room of Admittance. Now, for any of you that are not aware of what this is, it's something that was only briefly mentioned in the book, or perhaps not even just on Pottermore. This is essentially how Hogwarts students are decided at birth. There is, I'm going to get this wrong, there's the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of something. Essentially there's a quill and a book, and together they're 2 independent items that will decide on one person's name, so you have to have both in agreement for that person to be able to go to Hogwarts. So the quill writes on the paper and the paper accepts the quill. Pretty cool idea. only ever referenced and never included in anything because it's such a small scene. So we're going to dedicate this small room to it. We're going to make it quite fun, and we're going to try to give off quite an old ancient vibe because of course this was established when Hogwarts was established and hasn't been touched since. So here we have it. This is, and I stand corrected because I did just research this, the Book of Admittance and the Quill of Acceptance. I don't know what the room is called, but I got that mixed up. In any case, we've got a really cool little vignette here. I am just spinning aimlessly, but I stole the main scroll thing from one of the astronomy charts and I swapped out the tiles. And it does say once upon a time the right way up and then upside down, but I think it does look quite cool as it is. And then right next to it on a little pedestal we have the Quill of Acceptance. Now this is based pretty loosely on the version that you can see in the Hogwarts Legacy game, where it is on a sort of center dais, and it does look quite cool. Now obviously a lot less complicated than the Potion Classroom, which was on this side over here. But I do think, as a nice little Easter egg for those who will get it, we have, I'm just going to call it the Room of Admittance. And so with those rooms now out of the way, we can shift our attention to this page, Things to Do, in my very bad handwriting. And this is, like I was saying at the beginning of the video, all the small things that I just need to go through and quickly correct, fix, add on to make sure that they're actually finished, because there are a few bits and bobs just missing throughout the mock that I need to make sure I get around to. I'm not going to bore you with going through each one and showing you what that looks like, so we're going to skip now to once I have finished all of these, and I will give you a quick tour of some of the major ones. Okay, well, as of right now, even though it's not yet put together, this mock is pretty much done. And the reason why I say pretty much is that I've yet to decorate it with minifigures and create scenes and such. The actual pieces, the actual work, the actual castle, the water, the grounds, the plants, everything else should be done, and I am super excited for the first time to put this together and look at a completed Hogwarts mock. So we're going to do that. I'm going to show you a little bit of the tweaks that I did here and there. Most of them are not very noticeable. Some of them are just adding a little bit of flair. And then we'll go ahead, add those last scenes, and we'll take a final look at Hogwarts as a building series. Well, I'm trying to get a high enough vantage point here for you to see this entire mock. It is pretty much about 2 meters long. It's 8 base plates by 2.5 wide. Obviously we have the water over here running into this little bit, and you can see a little bit around the edge as it turns into the stream and off to the Forbidden Forest over there. This is by far my biggest mock I've ever done, and perhaps to the most detail. And it's a little bit of a love project. Hogwarts was of course one of the first mocks that I ever tried to make, and ever since that first time I've tried about 4 or 5 times, and I've always, I won't say the words given up, but I've always found a reason why I couldn't finish it. And well, I can't say I was ever satisfied with anything I did before, but taking a look at this now, especially from up here, I am so proud with how this castle has turned out. So I don't want to give you too much of a tour because I would like to save that for a later video, but in terms of the things that I've done since the last clip, obviously I've slapped the 2 tables together, but we've done these little torches around this bridge, and I think that just kind of helps to bring it a little bit more to life. They're just on these sort of saucers, and very simple design, but definitely brings a little bit of warmth to the mock. Over here, similar story, we've just got these candle flames going around the Great Hall. For the longest time, those torch brackets have always just been empty. We have done some of the signage. For example, you can see above the door right there, so that's looking pretty good. Most of the other stuff was on the inside, but I'll come around so that you can see just sort of like a last overview of the castle. Now, if I were to continue using these tables, and I probably wouldn't because they're so warped and bent, I do have room to expand over here and build some sort of forbidden forest, so that is a cool idea. Coming around the back, of course. It's over here, and I did a few fixes just in and around here in the rockwork where there was filler brick exposed and the such. But there we have it. So the last thing on our list is, of course, all of these scenes that I have to create. Now I'm going to be starting some of those now, just to get an idea of how they might look like. But of course, we will be taking this apart very soon and getting it ready to go to a convention. Here are essentially a bucket that I have thrown together of any and all sort of specialty items that might help bring a room to life. So that could be anything from posters to just jars to anything that's iconically Harry Potter. So I've got them all in here, and in this drawer I've got all of my Harry Potter minifigures. Now of course there are a few that I still have in sets that I didn't ever rebuild, so they're still in their Ziploc bags with the instructions, and I don't really want to dig through all those because I think this is more than enough for us to get some scenes across. So without further ado, let's get back to the MOC. Let's build a few of these iconic scenes, and we'll call that Building Hogwarts. And the major modifications to anything on the interiors are actually just down here underneath the Great Hall. First up is you can just see the very light bit of tile work around the edge. These were originally just exposed studs. Also, that rock wall for some reason never actually finished. It was just stopped halfway. We put a little extra few bits of furniture. For example, there was only one sofa for quite a while. We've got a huge Slytherin banner on the wall, in case you were wondering what house this is. That window was missing for quite a while, which wasn't ever shown on camera, but I had to rebuild it, so there you go. And down here, while I haven't laid them out because it would be counterintuitive to do so at this time, I have got a whole bag of bones and such that I'm planning on scattering through here. And of course, this is the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets, so it's supposed to be where they're walking across all the bones and they see the dead snake skin before they go through the door. Speaking of the Chamber of Secrets itself, well, essentially we used all of the trans clear tiles or plates throughout the rest of the MOC in order to get this sort of foamy waves against the rocks and such. So that left me with very little to do here. However, I decided to kind of match the water outside and use 1x1 round studs. And while this was done very quickly, and I will take my time when I'm doing it for the following convention, it will look, I mean, similar to this, but it will look a little bit cleaner. And I do quite like how this looks, especially with the water spilt out. And of course, we would also need to make the scene that makes this so iconic. Now, I don't want to leave you on a cliffhanger because I do intend to make all of the scenes that you guys have commented, and of course it's written down in my notebook over there, but I've got to start packing up for the convention because I've got to go pretty darn soon. So we are going to make a few taster scenes for this episode just to give you guys an idea of what's to come. And then in terms of what's happening with Hogwarts in future, well, of course, firstly, we're going to be taking it to the convention. I hope to firstly record how I transport it there, how I'm going to take it apart, get it there, rebuild it, setting up for the convention, just to give you guys a little bit of behind the scenes to all that. I might do some vlogging while at the convention itself. Now, I'm not much of a person to go and stand around in public and ask people how they built their things, but I will definitely take some video and maybe we'll overlay some music. And then after that, I plan on releasing a cinematic of all of this to show you guys a better view of Hogwarts, and then a proper walkthrough where we go through every single scene, interior element of Hogwarts and show it off in its entirety. And in case any of you were ever wondering about using IKEA tables, yes, they are good because they're cheap and they've got screw-on legs and you can twist the bottom and adjust the heights. But this is the effect of a heavy Lego MOC on it. The table is, as I've said many times before, extremely warped. I mean, I don't think you can quite see that, but you can definitely see that, and that is not flat, I can tell you what. But just a word to the wise, if you're gonna do a very heavy MOC, make sure you get a structurally sound table to start on. Alright, so just to give you all a little taster of what's to come, we've set up a few of the scenes that I've had recommended over here on the bridge. Now, this is a scene where, well, technically from the books, Snape is fighting off the other three house masters. So we've got it on the bridge simply because the dining hall is currently full with other things. Here we have Luna confessing that she supports Harry and believes that Voldemort is back. Coming around the side over here, got a small fun scene, Grop sitting by the water, hanging Umbridge upside down as the centaurs ask for a piece of her. And then of course, everyone's favorite, Buckbeak attacking Draco and him being grievously injured. But there you have it, everyone. That is Building Hogwarts. I am so proud with how this has turned out, and I really just want to take a moment and thank each and every one of you who have watched this series, who have commented, and who have just shared their support. It has really helped me, motivated me to keep going and actually finish this. So thank you very much for that, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this building series. And for the last time for Building Hogwarts, thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.